The sun hung low over the rolling hills of Montana, painting the sky in streaks of orange and pink, as if the world itself was blushing at the audacity of the day. The Karen Flower Ranch, sprawling across 500 acres of golden grass and whispering pines, was more than land. It was my heart, my sweat, my legacy. Every fence post, every barn beam, every blade of grass carried a story of my hands shaping it. But today, that legacy was under siege, and the enemy was closer than I'd ever imagined. My name is Abigail Harper, and I'm 62 years old, though I've never felt older than I did this morning. The letter in my hand trembled not from fear, but from a simmering rage that had been building for weeks. My sister, Karen, had always been the family's wild card, the one who'd breeze into town with her designer sunglasses and her city accent, stirring up trouble like a dust storm. She'd left Montana decades ago, chasing dreams of wealth and glamour, but now she was back, and she wanted my ranch. Worse, she'd roped in our younger sister, Lila, to help her steal it. It started subtly, as Karen's schemes always did. A few months ago, she'd shown up unannounced, her SUV kicking up gravel as she rolled into the driveway. "Abby, darling," she chirped, air-kissing my cheeks like we were in some Manhattan penthouse instead of my dusty porch. "This place is just divine. So rustic, so untouched." Her eyes had gleamed, not with nostalgia, but with calculation. I should have known then that Karen didn't come back to reconnect, she came to conquer. Over the weeks, she'd wormed her way into Lila's heart. Lila, sweet and naive at 55, still saw Karen as the dazzling older sister who'd once braided her hair and told her stories of far-off cities. Karen fed her dreams of a shared future. "We could turn this ranch into a resort, Lila. Think of the money, the luxury." Lila, who'd always struggled to find her place in the world, drank it in like a parched traveler. I watched, helpless, as Karen painted a picture of a life where my ranch-me life's work became their playground. But I wasn't helpless. Not yet. The ranch was mine, legally and spiritually, and I'd be damned if I let Karen's manicured claws sink into it. What she didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that I'd locked the land title in my will years ago, tied up in a trust so airtight, even a lawyer like Karen couldn't unravel it. The ranch would go to the Montana Land Preservation Society upon my death, to be protected forever as a working ranch, not some glitzy resort. Karen's scheme was doomed before it began, but oh, how I wanted to see her face when she realized it. The plan came to a head this morning, when I found the letter slipped under my door. It was from Lila, her looping handwriting shaky with guilt. "Abby, I'm so sorry, but Karen says it's for the best. We're filing to transfer the deed to me. Please don't hate us." My blood ran cold. Karen had convinced Lila to try to claim the ranch, using some legal loophole she thought she'd found. The audacity was almost laughable if it weren't so infuriating. I crumpled the letter and stormed to the barn, where my old friend Hank was brushing down my horse, Juniper. Hank, a wiry 70-year-old with a face like weathered leather, had worked this ranch with me for decades. He wasn't just hired help. He was family, the kind you choose. "They're at it again, Hank," I said, tossing the letter onto the hay-strewn floor. "Karen's got Lila thinking they can just take my land." Hank spat into the dirt, his eyes narrowing. "That sister of yours got more nerve than a rattlesnake. What's the play, Abby?" I grinned, though it felt more like baring my teeth. "We let him think they're winning. Then we pull the rug out." Hank chuckled, a low, rumbling sound. "You're a devil, Abigail Harper. What's the trap?" I told him about the will, about the trust, about how Karen's scheme was built on quicksand. But I wanted more than just to foil her. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal. So we hatched a plan, one that would let Karen and Lila dig their own graves while I watched from the sidelines. The next day, I invited them over for a talk. Karen arrived first, her heels clicking on my porch like a metronome of arrogance. Lila trailed behind, her eyes downcast, clutching a manila envelope that I knew contained their forged paperwork. "Abby," Karen began, her voice dripping with false warmth, "we're family. Let's do what's best for all of us." I played along, feigning defeat. "You want the ranch, Karen? Fine. Show me what you've got." Her eyes lit up, and she launched into her pitch. A luxury resort, complete with spa, golf course, and authentic ranch experiences for rich city folk. Lila nodded along, her face a mix of hope and shame. I let them talk, let them lay out their grand vision, all while my heart pounded with the thrill of the game. They had no idea they were walking into a trap. That's when the twist came not from me, but from an unexpected ally. The screen door creaked open, and in walked Clara, my lawyer's daughter, barely 25, but sharp as a tack. She'd been interning at her father's firm and had caught wind of Karen's scheme through a clerk at the county office. Clara wasn't supposed to be here. She was supposed to be in Missoula, finishing her law degree, but she'd driven all night to warn me. "Miss Harper," Clara said, her voice steady but her eyes blazing, "I found something you need to see." She held up a folder, thick with documents. "Your sister's been forging signatures. Not just Lila's, but yours too. She tried to file a transfer with the county last week." Karen's face went pale, her lips parting in a silent gasp. Lila's head snapped up, her eyes wide with shock. "Karen, is that true?" she whispered. I leaned back in my chair, letting the moment stretch. "Well, Karen," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "Care to explain?" Karen stammered, her usual composure crumbling. It's a misunderstanding, Abby. I was just trying to streamline things for Lila's sake." Clara didn't let her finish. "You used a notary who's under investigation for fraud. The county flagged it immediately. You're lucky they didn't press charges yet." Lila's hands shook as she dropped the envelope, papers spilling across the floor. "You lied to me," she said, her voice breaking. "You said this was legal, Karen. You said we were helping Abby." Karen's eyes darted between us, searching for an escape. But there was none. Clara had brought the evidence, and I had the will. The ranch was untouchable, and Karen's scheme was unraveling faster than a cheap sweater. I stood, crossing my arms. "You thought you could take my home, my heart, and turn it into some soulless playground. You thought you could manipulate Lila, use her trust in you to get what you wanted. But you forgot one thing, Karen. This land is mine, and I've made sure it'll stay that way, even when I'm gone." I handed her a copy of the trust, watching her face as she read the words that sealed her defeat. The ranch was locked under my will, untouchable by her or anyone else. Lila sobbed quietly, her betrayal of me now mirrored by Karen's betrayal of her. The room was thick with tension, the air heavy with the weight of broken trust. But I wasn't done. I turned to Clara, who'd been watching with a quiet intensity. "Clara, you've got a good head on your shoulders. How'd you like to learn the ropes of this ranch? Someone's got to keep it going when I'm too old to ride." Clara's eyes widened, a spark of excitement breaking through her serious demeanor. "Me? Miss Harper, I'd be honored." Karen stormed out, her heels clicking furiously as she fled to her SUV. Lila stayed, her head bowed, whispering apologies I wasn't ready to accept. The ranch was safe, but the victory felt hollow. My sisters had betrayed me, and the family I'd once cherished was fractured beyond repair. As the sun set over the hills, I walked out to the pasture, Juniper's soft whinny greeting me. Hank joined me, leaning against the fence. "You played him like a fiddle, Abby," he said, a grin tugging at his lips. "Yeah," I replied, my voice heavy. "But it doesn't feel like winning." The days after Karen's defeat were a blur of quiet tension. The ranch, with its endless chores and familiar rhythms, became my refuge. The creak of the barn door, the scent of hay, the steady thump of Juniper's hooves, these were the constants that kept me grounded. But the wound of betrayal, raw and aching, lingered like a bruise that wouldn't fade. Lila stayed in town, holed up at the motel, sending me texts I didn't answer. Karen, predictably, had vanished back to her city life, leaving chaos in her wake. Yet the story wasn't over. The ranch was safe, but the heart of me family was still bleeding. Clara, bless her, threw herself into learning the ranch with a zeal that surprised even Hank. She was a city girl by birth, but her hands were quick to adapt, her mind sharper than a branding iron. She'd show up at dawn, her hair tied back, ready to muck stalls or mend fences. "Ms. Harper," she'd say, her voice earnest, "this place, it's more than land. It's alive." I saw myself in her, the way I'd been 40 years ago when I first took over the ranch from our parents. It gave me hope, but it also sharpened the sting of Lila's betrayal. One morning, as Clara and I were hauling feed to the cattle, Hank pulled me aside. His weathered face was grim, his eyes darting to the horizon. "Abby, we got a problem," he said, handing me a crumpled notice from the county. My stomach dropped as I read it. A new filing. this time from a development company called Horizon Ventures, claiming a lien on the ranch for unpaid taxes. The amount was staggering $50,000, dating back years. I knew every bill I'd paid, every receipt I'd filed. This was no mistake. This was Karen. She's not done, I muttered, my hands clenching the paper. She's trying to bleed me dry. Hank spat into the dirt. She's playing dirty now? You gonna fight? I nodded, my jaw tight. Damn right I am. The twist came faster than I expected. That afternoon, Clara burst into the kitchen, her laptop open and her face flushed with urgency. Ms. Harper, you need to see this. She'd been digging into Horizon Ventures, using her law school connections to unearth their records. The company was a shell, a front for Karen's latest scheme. But the real shock was the name tied to it. Lila, our sister, who I'd thought was just a pawn, was listed as a co-signer on the lien. Lila, I whispered, my voice cracking. She's in on this too? Clara hesitated, her eyes soft with sympathy. It looks like she didn't know the full extent. The signatures are hers, but the filings, they're all Karen's handiwork. Lila's name is just a tool. I sank into a chair, the weight of it crushing me. Lila hadn't just been manipulated, she'd been complicit, even if half-heartedly. The ranch was my soul, but family was supposed to be my strength. Now, both felt like they were slipping through my fingers. I drove to the motel that evening, my heart a tangle of anger and grief. Lila was there, sitting on the curb, her face pale and tear-streaked. She stood when she saw me, her hands twisting together. Abby, I didn't know, she said before I could speak. Karen told me it was just paperwork, a way to protect the ranch. I didn't know about the lien. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But the evidence was stacked against her, her signature, her name, her silence. You chose her over me, I said, my voice low and trembling. You let her use you to take my home. Lila sobbed, her shoulders shaking. I thought I was helping. I thought we could all be a family again. Her words hit like a punch. Family, the thing I'd fought for. Even when Karen turned her back on us, even when Lila wavered. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to make her see the depth of her betrayal. But looking at her, broken and lost, I felt something else bitty. She'd been caught in Karen's web, just as I'd nearly been. Go home, Lila, I said finally. But don't come back to the ranch. Not yet. She nodded, tears streaming down her face, and I drove away, the rearview mirror blurring with my own unshed tears. The fight with Horizon Ventures was a legal quagmire, but Clara was a godsend. She worked with her father's firm to dismantle the lien, proving the taxes had been paid and exposing Karen's forged documents. The county dropped the claim, but the victory was bittersweet. The ranch was safe again, but the cost was more than money. It was trust, love, the bonds I'd thought unbreakable. Weeks later, I got a call from Karen. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Her voice was sharp, unapologetic. You think you've won, Abby? This isn't over. That ranch should be ours, not some charities. I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. You never understood, Karen. It's not about owning the land. It's about belonging to it. And you never will. I hung up, my hands shaking. The ranch was mine, locked under my will, but the fight had left scars. Lila sent letters, pleading for forgiveness, but I wasn't ready. Maybe I never would be. Clara, though, became a fixture, her laughter filling the barn as she learned to ride Juniper. Hank teased her mercilessly, but his eyes sparkled with pride. They were my family now, not by blood but by choice. The final twist came on a quiet evening, as I sat on the porch, watching the stars emerge over the hills. Clara joined me, a thick envelope in her hands. Ms. Harper, she said, her voice hesitant. There's something else you need to know. She handed me the envelope, and inside was a letter from our mother, written years before her death. It was addressed to all three of us, Karen, Lila, and me. In her looping script, she spoke of the ranch, of the love she'd poured into it, and of her hope that we'd share it as sisters. But there was a line that stopped me cold. If you cannot stand together, let the land go to those who will honor it. I realized then that I'd been wrong not about Karen, but about Lila. She'd been lost, not malicious. And I'd pushed her away, just as Karen had pushed us both. The ranch was safe, but at what cost? I'd won the battle, but I'd lost my sister. The next day, I drove to Lila's motel. She was packing, her bags half-zipped, her face drawn with exhaustion. "Abby," she said, startled. "What are you doing here?" I held out the letter. "Read this. Then decide if you want to come home." She took it, her hands trembling, and as she read, tears welled in her eyes. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know what I was doing." "I know," I said, my voice softer than I'd meant it to be. "But you're still my sister. And this ranch, it's ours, not mine." We stood there, the weight of years between us, and for the first time in months, I felt a flicker of hope. Karen was gone, her schemes reduced to ash, but Lila and I could rebuild. Not the ranch that was unbreakable, but our bond, fragile and bruised, but still alive. The sun set over the Karen Flower Ranch, casting long shadows across the land I'd fought for. Clara was in the barn, laughing with Hank as they wrestled with a stubborn calf. Lila stood beside me, her hand brushing mine, a silent promise to try again. But the victory was bittersweet, a reminder that love and trust, once broken, leave scars that never fully heal. The ranch would endure, locked under my will, a testament to my mother's dream and my own stubborn heart. But as I looked at Lila, I wondered if I'd fought too hard for the land and not hard enough for her. The land was safe, but my heart ached with the weight of what I'd lost and what I might never regain. What do you think? Was Abigail right to protect the ranch at all costs, even if it meant pushing her sister away? Or should she have forgiven Lila sooner, risking the land for the sake of family? Share your thoughts. Where do you stand on the line between loyalty to yourself and loyalty to those you love?